Good morning, Thursday, April 10th, 11:11. Make a wish, I guess, right? In the AM for the All 32 pod. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside. A reminder, this show brought to you by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I did a mock draft on Monday, which aired obviously earlier this week, and I've inspired Will. It's his first one. I'm fired up for it. He sent me it, and I'm like, I can get down with this. Let's run through it, Will. I'm pretty excited about your first mock, and the people that there was a lot of conversation on mine. I think there'll be a lot of conversation on this one as well. Top 5 picks, and I'll just rip through them and then comment if you win and where you want. Cam Ward, obviously, going number 1. We've talked about that ad nauseum to Tennessee. Travis Hunter, a lot of buzz. Going number 2, you have to Cleveland. Abdul Carter, number 3. Will Campbell, the left tackle, going to the Patriots at 4, and Mason Graham, defensive tackle, going to the Jags at 5. I guess my first thought here is you're buying into the Hunter hype at 2.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, this is, again, what I think will happen, not what I would do. It seems like
clarifying.
Schefter's been very adamant that Cleveland's going to go Hunter at 2, and just, again, not saying that that's spoken word or anything like that, but I don't think he'd be putting it out there this aggressively if, one, it's either because they really just truly like him or some type of trade stuff, but it doesn't feel like for the Browns, unless they're going to get Godfather offered by Dallas, as we mentioned last episode, or the Giants, or the Jets, I don't know, whoever the team may be, the Patriots, it doesn't matter. Like, unless that's happening, it just feels like the idea of Carter and Garrett's really cool, but I also feel like it's an offensive head coach, and at some point they probably would want a nice offensive chess piece if you see it that way. Carter to the Giants, I guess that means you have to trade Thibodeau. I don't know how I'm not sure they can afford to do, Carter, Thibodeau, Lawrence, and Burns in one defensive line. Sounds really cool until you think about the fact that you double Dexter Lawrence and just run the ball up the middle every single play. But those kind of feel – the top 3 feels like it's those 3 guys. It's just a matter of what order you have them in.
What do you make of there's been a lot of noise in the last 4 or 5 days about Abdul Carter and teams being more uncomfortable with Abdul Carter, not just because of the foot with the stress reaction, which can lead to a stress fracture, but also just the off-the-field stuff that I'm pretty sure the first place anybody was talking about that was on this podcast, the All 32 around the Senior Bowl. But now, finally, people have seemingly picked this up. And what do you make of this? Do you think someone with that talent, I think there's no denying, right, that you and I and pretty much everybody else believe there's 2 real blue chippers in this draft. It's Travis Hunter and it's Abdul Carter. Could you see a scenario, though, because of some of what we're hearing now, that maybe Carter slips and slides out of the top 5?
I don't think I don't see him actually sliding, but I do think teams would. I think if they were in a room with Jalon Walker and Abdul Carter, they're going to come away saying we like Jalon Walker a lot better as a guy we want to build around. But I also think that Abdul Carter in 1 year as an edge rusher was spectacular. I think he's a really awesome player. I don't think it's like he's some horrible guy. I think it's a little bit, like the guy he's compared to, Micah Parsons, where not sure he's the easiest guy to coach. Not sure he's the easiest guy to be around day to day. I'm not saying that he, again, is some horrible guy. Might be a little bit of a dick. I mean, and again, that's fine if you're going to go through, right? Like Micah Parsons is a little bit of a nozzle, but at the same time, it's fine. Like, again, I don't know that I give Micah Parsons $40 million a year, just knowing that Dallas has so many other holes and all these different things. And hey, what could you get for him? But if they gave it the money, like, you get it. He's a super productive player. He's been unbelievable in the first 4 years in the league. So again, I think the stuff with Carter to me is, I wonder if the Giants and or the Patriots are kind of teams that are like, hey, if we don't get him, he doesn't fall there, we don't really want him. Can we get teams convinced enough we do want him to come move up? Because I think both teams in an ideal world would like to accumulate more picks and, and be able to be like, hey, our roster needs more and more. And especially New England, I think the Giants are in a weird spot. I don't know that the quarterbacks they have on the roster are good enough to save these guys' jobs, but I also don't know if they're comfortable enough taking Shedeur Sanders in the top 3 and just saying, hey, boom, this will fix our problems. So if I'm them, I guess I'd probably say, hey, would someone give us can we trade a second rounder and Thibodeau to move back up into round 1, and then we get Shedeur and Abdul Carter, and we're like, hey, Carter's a better player than Thibodeau. They're both a little frustrating at times to deal with, but Carter's a much better player. And hey, we got Shedeur, and we didn't have to give up a ton. Like, they have to be very creative here. And I talked about it on the first episode on Monday. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. They did it last year. They tried this strategy last year. Best player available. Neighbors is awesome. Again, not the easiest thing to deal with, but an awesome player. And they try to come back up for, quarterback at the end of round 1, and all those guys were gone by pick 12. So will that happen this year, Mike? I don't think so. But I don't know if the Saints were just like, screw it, we're taking Shedeur, and the Rams take Jackson Dart, and you're like sitting there going, oh boy, are we in the Will Howard sweepstakes at 35? Like,
Taylor,
Taylor
Shock. Yeah, there's
all these guys, and again, like, I get it. I just I think they end up going, I almost just said almost going with Parsons, going with Carter and figure it out later. But yeah, they're just a really interesting one, because I think the Browns feel like Hunter's the best player. You just take him and say, hey, we're going to accumulate assets and we'll figure it out. The Giants are just weird because they've so much money invested in this defensive line already. But Carter's a special player, and you got to hit the quarterback in a division with Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts.
Well, it's like the conversation that we've had with the Patriots, and including the one we had about Jalon Walker, where I had him picking in my mock when Carter was gone at 4 earlier in the week. I look at the Patriots roster, and there isn't really a place that I would say there's not a position group that I wouldn't draft here. Like, okay, could you argue corner? Sure, because you have Gonzalez, you just paid Carlton Davis. Fine, I get that. And based on the cornerback class, that makes sense. You're not going to draft the quarterback, obviously, because you have Drake May. But then it's like everything else is open as far as I'm concerned. And so if someone of Carter's talent is sitting there at 4, even if you've invested all this money on defense and free agency, because
I think it's a no-brainer for the Patriots, because I think that they don't have a long-term solution at edge. I think for the Giants, well, I think Carter's probably better than both those guys. They just gave Brian Burns a massive amount of money. Thibodeau's due massive amount of money next year, and I don't know what his value is. I just think it's a little easier for the Giants, whereas the Patriots, if Carter or Hunter are there, I think it's a no-brainer, run the card in, and everybody else, there are questions. Like, I have them taking Campbell because I think the winds are blowing that way, and it feels like that's what they end up going with. High character guy, good player. Mike, my question is, like, is this regime that's new, mostly new, obviously, are they willing to bet on the ultimate outlier, right? Will Campbell, who has, I'm not joking, in the last 15 years, no one's had that short of a wingspan and been drafted in the top 100. Nobody. It's not like this isn't like, oh, you're making too big of a deal of it. It's a metric that the NFL has gone by forever. It doesn't mean it's fail-proof, because there's guys that have been borderline there that have become good tackles. Again, I'm going to repeat myself for the 800th time. I think they do it, and I think Campbell's going to be a good NFL player. I do just worry a little bit of you're taking a shot. I don't know. Do they just go Graham and say we're going to stack the trenches on the other side? Because as long as the Patriots go trenches, to me, I think it's the way they want to build this thing. Inside out. It's a Vrabel team. Want to be physical up front, and is Mason Graham his Jeffrey Simmons? And it's like, dude, if we have Barmore, Simmons, and Barmore, Graham, and Milton Williams alternating on this defensive line, like, no one's running the football on us, and we're going to get a ton of pressure on the quarterback. It's really appealing to me. I know it's not a receiver, and I know it's not a running back and all these exciting stuff, but I think Graham's a better player. I just think that offensive line's such a big need, and it is harder to find a tackle on day 2 than it is a defensive tackle. So for those reasons, that's why I went with Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about Will Campbell, and we'll probably continue to talk about him, and we may be talking about him after. Well, we will be talking about him after the draft, depending on where he goes, whether it's New England, somewhere else. There are a lot of people that cover the Patriots that are pushing the Will Campbell thing and think it's crazy that they wouldn't draft Will Campbell just based on you've got to protect Drake May. Your offensive line was terrible last year. And some people have even gone to the point where they say, well, even if he ends up as a guard, like, it doesn't matter. I'll keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. I'm not drafting a freaking guard at 4. So I better be damn sure he's a tackle. And I understand you can say to me, Mike, he's going to be one of our best 5. Where if we pick him, he's going to be one of the best 5. And even if that's not a left tackle, he might end up being a Pro Bowl guard. Wonderful. Let me tell you this. Shaq Mason and Joe Thuney were 3rd and 4th round picks. If you're good at your job, if you're good at talent evaluation and drafting, you can find a guard in the 3rd or 4th round. There's a lot of people here who are snake bit because of the variety of darts that they've thrown at sort of middle round guards in the last couple of years. And I would just say last year's regime proved nothing to us. And yes, there's still some carryover to this one. And the end of Bill Belichick's tenure was a disaster on many fronts, including drafting. So if you want to point at Cole Strange, Antonio Mafi, who's not on the team anymore, Jake Andrews, who's been hurt the entire time, Sidney So, who had a massive step back in year 2, even though me personally didn't think he was all that great in year 1. Layden Robinson played a lot last year, didn't show a ton. If you want to say, well, oh, you can't do it because, look, he's better than all those guys. Look, man, make your money. This is how you make your money. If you're a general manager and your talent evaluators, you find less than premium positions, find them later in the draft. So that's where I'm at. I will remain at on the Will Campbell thing. And again,
Patriots.
I say this just, we have to say this because people are getting crazy. We think he's a good player. I just don't think he's a left tackle.
I just think he's an outlier.
You can bet on it.
I think he's an outlier, and I think it's really difficult to bet on an outlier this early. The one thing we haven't mentioned for the Patriots, and again, I don't know, I think some people actually view him as a guard too, but most people view him as a tackle. Kelvin Banks to me at 4 is rich.
Yes.
Full stop. But he is a left tackle. He's a 3-year starter at Texas. He's got really good tape. Again, I wouldn't take him at 4, and I'm not sure I would take him at 7, but some teams may feel that way, and it's a name we just haven't mentioned. We've mentioned Membou, we mentioned Campbell. I just would be curious if, as we get closer, Banks' stock is coming back full circle. I feel like around the A&M game this year was like for sure top 5, top 7 pick. Then it fell to like, is he going to go in round 1 after he gets hurt? And now it's come back to, I think, top 20 no matter what. How close he gets to the top 5, I'm not sure. He's an interesting name that a lot of people have connected him to Dallas, San Francisco. I wonder the Jets. I wonder, is he again a guy that starts to creep back up as again a natural tackle? I think he could be a better guard in some ways, but I also feel like 3 years of straight tape at tackle and the measurements are fine. He's just a name that we haven't talked about for the Patriots, and I just would be interested if he maybe goes there. The Jags, I feel like, is a Mason Graham spot. I think they could go a lot of different ways. I think Tet makes a lot of sense there because of, the obvious connections of, is he Mike Evans? Although he's not Mike Evans, so like I don't.
The range on Tet is about, is about as wide a range right now. I mean, there's a couple other guys that fall in this category, but like, yeah, you're right. He could go 5, and I wouldn't be like, oh my God, they picked Tet. He could go 28. And I'd be like,
yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I
understand.
Graham to me feels like the favorite. I think there is some Jeanty chatter. There's some trade back. There's some Tyler Warren chatter. I went with Graham here. I just think fortify that defensive line. They got 2 really nice edge rushers. Continue to get better up front and kind of build this thing the right way. Went Jeanty at 6. The Raiders are the hardest team for me to pick for in this draft. Them and the Saints, because they need everything, but don't need, like, I don't know. You're just going based off previous regimes or the way I can see
how much, like when I look at the Raiders, and again, this has been a popular mock, I think, and it makes a lot of sense. Here's your Marshawn Lynch, but like, how much control did Pete have over the drafts that built that football team in Seattle that won a Super Bowl versus how much control did he have at the end when maybe they felt like
drafting guys every second running back ever.
It is. It's an interesting scenario, and you're right. There could be a whole bunch of players. Before we get to your mock for number 7 and the Jets, we should probably talk about Prizepicks because we love them. They do an awesome job. They support us here, all the CLNS folks as well. It's fantasy sports, accessible, easy, billions and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players, up to 6 to win up to 1,000 times your cash. App's really easy to use. You can cross sports. I've been talking about this a lot because we're kind of at the center of NBA, NHL. We're about to have the playoffs. Major League Baseball couple weeks in now, so you've got all these different sports. You can even get involved with, let's say, golf, for instance, if you're into that sort of thing. And you can cross sports, again, more or less, pair them together, see what happens. They've invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, which is a nice little add. You can double your money even if one of those picks doesn't hit. So all you got to do is download the app today, use the code CLNS, and you get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. At number 7, can we play the ESPN music, whatever that is? I don't think I got that.
I went Armand Membou here. I went between him and Warren. I went tackle here. I just feel like, establish the trenches coming from that Detroit regime where they, really awesome offensive line. I believe they took Penei Sewell at 7, if I'm not mistaken, in Detroit. So right tackle, the Jets would be doing the same and be fortifying a really, really good group. I think I would argue by the end of the year would be the best offensive line in the division, by a pretty substantial margin. Just like everyone there is 26 or 27 or younger. Most of those guys are top 40, 50 picks. Most of them all first rounders, minus Simpson. Makes a ton of sense. It opens the Jets up to go receiver and tight end on day 2, which I think is kind of the popular pick. I still think Warren's the favorite, but Membou is a damn good player. Went Jalon Walker at 8 to Carolina. I've seen this as a popular Tet spot, Mike Green, etc. Jalon Walker's a local kid. I think he's like the 4th best player in this draft. And if the Panthers getting him at 8, gives him a chess piece to do a bunch of different things with. I think they're a team that's trying to build a culture there. And if you want that, that's like this is, Bryce on offense, and we got to address more receivers. We got to address these different things. But we have a quarterback who's very soft-spoken. That's not the dads at every game and all these different things. No hate or every practice, but like it's a lot. Having like an outspoken vocal leader that's going to be an edge rusher and you can move him around on defense, a local kid, I think would be big for Dave Canales to be like, this is our guy. Him and JC Horn are going to build around our defense. And we got Trayvon Mooring. We got a bunch of these guys in free agency. The Panthers go with that, and there's been a bunch of different options for them, but they do rounds 1 through 3. I like their all season a lot, and I'm not so sure I won't pick them to win the division. That's kind of like, I feel really good about what they've done for the first time in a long time. Ted went at 9. The Saints need everything, and it could be quarterback. They could go tackle. They could go defense.
This should be the year the Saints trade back, by the way. They're the master of trading up, but they feel like, once again, it feels like what they did in the offseason so far feels like they still think they can win.
Signing Justin Reed to a 3-year deal of $30 million, age 29, is not a rebuild at all. Mike Green at 10 to the Bears. Popular Jeanty destination, popular Warren destination. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up there. Just feel like they still feel like a pass rusher short. And Mike Green, it depends on the field stuff, where the Bears have him, but really, really good player. And I think we can make a lot of sense. I want to highlight this pick. I went Shemar Stewart at 11, and I debated him at 9, debated him at 8, debated him at 10. I know there's a lot of questions around Stewart, production, all that stuff. Is he not such a Robert Saleh defensive end? Great burst, really explosive 10-yard split, the broad jump, size, profile, all that stuff. The Niners roster kind of stinks now in a lot of spots. Not, they still have those top-end guys that are really good, and Bosa and Kittle and McCaffrey and Warner and all those guys. Like, I get it. But around the edges is tough. And they kind of need someone. Yeah, they kind of need someone opposite Bosa right now to really be. And I feel like there wouldn't be as much pressure on Shemar. This could be a good landing spot. Saleh does maximize a lot of these guys. He's kind of a similar size profile to John Franklin Myers, who had his best years with the Jets. So I'll stop there, Mike. Are you surprised by any of those picks, or do those kind of feel? Shemar, I've not seen mock there, but I feel like it's a perfect fit.
So after the Senior Bowl, we were talking about Shemar possibly going 7, right, for the Jets. And then I felt like it sort of quieted down a little bit, and because people kept pointing to the production, 4.5 sacks in 3 years. How can this guy be this freaky and not impact the quarterback more? But he does. He just didn't end up with all the sacks. I think San Francisco is a great place for him, not just because of Saleh, but they've done a real good job over the course of time developing defensive linemen. Okay, Kinlaw, that didn't happen. But by and large, when you look at some of the pieces that Menahue, some of these guys that they've had that have gone through there and have made money elsewhere, they've been real good at it. So if the D-line coach likes him, I would be very comfortable taking him at 11 and saying, yes, we finally have someone. Because if you look at their depth chart too, it's edge, interior too, they could probably use as well. And again, this is a good draft to do it. And you could do that later on, whether they have multiple picks this year, second, third round, you could do that. But I like the fit of Stewart there. I could see him being a terror in San Francisco.
Remember, the Jets, Saleh got his way 2 years ago with Will McDonald at 15, and everyone's like, oh, I don't know. And I went Matt Golden at 12, Jahdae Barron at 13, back-to-back Texas guys. Golden, they need someone opposite CeeDee Lamb. Taking a running back there to me is nuts. I like Amari and Hampton, but all right, at the top 12 for a team like
such a good running back.
Again, if the Cowboys are sitting there going, hey, all our money's invested at edge, D-tackle, and receiver and quarterback, like, I get it, as opposed to, hey, like, you draft a running back that high, they got to be, I don't know, what would Hampton have to be, a top 10 back to justify that? And I don't know. That's an offensive line spot as well, maybe a bank spot. Went Jahdae Barron at 13 to Miami. Miami, again, is this a Gray Zabel, a Banks, Connerly? I don't know. That could be one of those. But Jalen Ramsey ain't getting any younger. Javon Holland's no longer there. I don't know if they view it, people view Barron as a safety. Some people view him as a corner. Either way, I think that's a good pick there. Last two before we, kind of catch up on these. Warren at 14 to the Colts. I think this is the floor for Warren. I would be pretty shocked if I think he's going to go somewhere between 5 and 14. And they need help on offense. They've invested a lot around Anthony Richardson, but if you want to see if you get anything out of him, and if you want to get anything out of Daniel Jones, people who are watching the video and see the face I made. I will say Warren, Pittman, Pierce, Mitchell, and then Jonathan Taylor's a pretty damn good group, and Josh Downs, like, that's a really nice collection of pass catchers for whoever the quarterback is, and
whichever quarterback can't throw
whichever quarterback can complete passes. But you got a guy who's a good play caller. You have give you a ton of weapons to give you guys intermediate, short, deep threats, really good running back, good offensive line. Like, that should be a fail-proof situation for a quarterback if you get a guy like Warren there. Again, not sure he'll be there, but nevertheless. And then lastly, I went Jihaad Campbell at 15. I really contemplated, is this an Ezeraku spot? Was this, a Michael Williams spot? Was this a James Pierce spot? They need to go defense. I mean, I understand there's the allure of receiver and offensive line. I debated as well. I feel like we've always assumed they're going to they have not replaced John Abraham. It's funny. Side note, John Abraham is like the franchise killer after he leaves somewhere. The Jets didn't have a 10-sack edge rusher for 20 years after John Abraham. He goes to the Falcons. They have also not had, except for one Vic Beasley season, have had an edge rusher that's worth a damn.
Good Lord.
John Abraham literally cursed both franchises. Love the guy. Great player, but it's insane. I went Campbell here just because I think if you're Raheem Morris, he's the ultimate. Him and Walker are the two chess pieces, right? Like, they're going to be listed as linebackers, but Campbell's a freak athlete. If you're comfortable with the shoulder, I think I have no problem taking him inside the top 15.
Yeah, my only, and this is just something I've come to lately, I don't love Barron.
Yeah, he's 24 already.
Yeah, he's a little bit older. Again, is he an outside corner? Is he a safety? If I'm going safety, like if that's what I was thinking, I'd go Starks. I like Starks a lot. I know, again, we've talked about Eamon Wari too, probably going in the first round, or at least being mocked in the first round in a bunch of different places. But his tape's not as good as Starks's. And Starks didn't have an awesome year this year, but I still think he's a really good football player. Someone's going to be happy with. So that would be the one where and again, it's a personal preference thing. I don't particularly love the cornerback class, which, by the way, is where you start at pick 16 with Will Johnson, who his tape 2 years ago is top 5, top 6 tape, right? And this year, the injuries, some inconsistencies. But when you look at Arizona's situation, I mean, it's a need for them for sure.
Yeah, it's a need for them. I didn't. They're really confusing because could have gone Kenneth Grant, could have gone, Walter Nolan. Could I have gone offensive line?
Michael
Johnson
Williams.
to me, I feel like they just Jonathan Gannon gets an outside corner. He can really enjoy.
Yeah.
I blank, and I just think really good player. Again, it's a frustrating one because 2024 tape wasn't even bad. It just was not as good. I don't like it. He just is so good in 2023. It was hard to live up to. And then there's the turf toe. I said this at the time. I can go back and find the text. The way it was handled at the end of the year with the Ohio State game was really tough. And I myself texted a million people right after and was like, what the F, dude? Like, if you were playing all year, keep playing through it. And if you weren't, you should have been done 3 weeks ago because it looks like you're scared to play against these guys that are, Jeremiah Smith and whatever. And it's not true, right? He obviously had pretty severe foot injury and the whole thing, but it just, the optics of that, I wonder, and then not testing, I feel like has had people sour on him a bit. Went Gray Zabel at 17. I feel like everyone's mocked the Bengals and interior offensive lineman. I did the same thing. I think a lot of teams in the 20s thought Zabel would be there, and I can't find a way he doesn't get he gets anywhere close to Washington. But I went Kelvin Banks at 18. I contemplated flipping Banks and Zabel here just because either team. But I wonder if Seattle starts Banks at guard this year and just says, "Hey, we need to protect Arnold, and we got to figure this out." And then as time goes on, kicks him outside. I wasn't. It was hard to figure out Seattle again. Like, if Tet was there, do they do that? If Warren falls, do they go there? Do they go Loveland? But again, then I'm like, all of your receivers that are good operate over the middle of the field and in the slot. Do I really want to clog that up? If Golden even got there, maybe because he's can stretch the field. But and then I'll just finish these two and then let me know. Ezeraku at 19. Again, this is the perfect Jihaad Campbell team. I don't know how he falls here. I don't love Ezeraku quite as much as everybody else. It feels like some people have him as like a top 10 player in the class. I think he's
polarizing for sure.
He's more to me in the 18 to 30 range, somewhere in there. I think I'd feel comfortable. And then I went to Mario Hampton at 20. Again, could this be a Colston Loveland team? Maybe, but they just paid Evan Ingram for 2 years and kind of a similar player. I don't know if I want to double down on guys that don't really want to have blocking. Mike, I'll stop there. Zabel, Banks, Ezeraku, and Hampton to finish out the top 20.
Yeah, I think if Zabel was there at 18, he doesn't get past Seattle. So I think you're spot on in terms of like he's not getting to the 20s. I like the Hampton pick because they tried a lot of different things at running back last year. Didn't really work. Javonte Williams is gone now. Like, Hampton is – people have talked about sort of Jeanty being this generational talent. That's not true. Like, if Jeanty was in the Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson class, he's going third amongst that group. You know what I mean? Like, but he's a really good player. It's just that when people start putting Jeanty and Hampton side by side, it's like, boy, Jeanty's and Hampton, there's not much that separates the two of them. And I could see – and that's a good way, again, to support a young quarterback in Bo Nix. Let's have a freaking better running game than the one that you just had. At 21, the slide ends for Shedeur Sanders. Some people are putting out there that this is what he wants. He wants to slide down the board. He doesn't want to go 1, 2, or 3. Like, anybody ever said that? I don't want to go 1, 2, or 3. But
you can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah, the PR machine is absolutely in overdrive for the Sanders family. But I like that spot for him at 21. Like, look, we all believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be
change Hard Knocks to the Steelers and just be
yes, because that would be a fascinating room to be in with Arthur Smith, Mr. FedEx, and then Aaron Rodgers and Shedeur Sanders. But I like the fit there, right? Because I think it's a good place for him because I like the idea that he doesn't have to come in and play right away. Because I think there are some things with him that if you believe he's going to be a good quarterback, it might do him some good to sit for the entire year or whatever. If something happens to Rodgers, at least get some bench time and some just sort of let's see how the NFL game operates before he gets put in there. So I think if Shedeur Sanders, if I was him, I still want to go in the top 3. But if I don't, Pittsburgh's a pretty good landing spot.
They do not have their second rounder. So this is a tough one because if you don't take a player that's going to impact you this year and you sign Rodgers, you're not getting a pick till round 3. I don't know. Is this a Hampton spot if he falls another pick? Is this Kenneth Grant? I went to Mecca Ibuka at 20 or Colston Loveland at 22. I feel like they signed Tyler Conklin. They have, Will Dissly on the roster as well. Solid room, but again, guys that are probably there for a year, 2 years. Loveland can play alongside those guys as well. It just feels like Harbaugh give Herbert another weapon. This could be a Kenneth Grant spot as well, but obviously he knows Loveland well from his time in Michigan. Everyone's connected the Chargers taking Michigan guy eventually. They probably won't because
right.
I went to Mecca Ibuka at 23. This one was weird. I just feel like they need another receiver, and Ibuka is just like rock solid, does everything really well. He doesn't really feel like a Packers pick, though. He's not like the classic 6'4", 190-pound, runs a 4.2 but can't catch guy. So I don't know if he actually goes there, but it felt like they need.
This might be time to break their mold because he's a good player and he's a good player inside. He's a good player. Everybody, because I've heard people say like, "Oh, he's slot only." He can play outside. He did if you look at some of the metrics, he was just as good outside as he was inside. So for a team too, with Christian Watson likely not playing this year, or if he is, he's playing late in the year and probably not himself because of the knee injury. I like it.
Yeah, I went Malachi Starks at 24. Could have gone corner here. I just feel like Harrison Smith's got a year max.
35, I think.
35. I mean, I think this year was kind of like maybe I'm not coming back, and he ended up coming back for one more year. I just think Brian Flores getting a chess piece he can kind of use in a million different ways would be fantastic for them. Then I went Josh Simmons at 25. Me and you, I feel like have just zeroed in on this is where he's going. I've said it a million times. If you felt comfortable with the knee, there's like 8 teams ahead of these that should have taken Josh Simmons. But if he falls this far, if you're Houston, and then again, because we've mocked it so much, they won't do this. Like, get your future left tackle for the future and future left tackle of the future.
I like that.
And he doesn't have to play right away. And it's like you can kind of start to integrate him in when he's healthy. And maybe he's healthy week 1. Maybe it's till week 8. Maybe he doesn't even play this year. Doesn't matter. He's going to have his comfortability, obviously, with Stroud and the whole thing. And just, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer. It's good value.
I've heard some rumblings in the last 3 or 4 days that he might even go higher than this. So there may be somebody in that top 20 who's gotten a look at the measurables. I mean, the medicals and said, look, he didn't play a ton this year, 6 games, but the tape is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And they are comfortable with, and we keep saying he's a different kind of dude. Like, he's not a bad dude. There's some rumblings that he doesn't love practice. I think a lot of guys don't love practice. So are you comfortable with that part of it? And then he's different, but like different, not in a, like Abdul Carter punching a tow truck driver. Like, this is not that. It's just, he's a sort of a different kind of dude, but it feels like that's some of that personality stuff's a little bit overblown, or just, hey, are you comfortable with this guy being sort of, I don't know if he's an introvert, whatever, but like, fine. But the talent is the talent.
Talent's the talent. I went Josh Connerly at 26. This could be a Jackson Dart spot. They probably should go defense here, but I feel like not so subtly every year. And it feels like the Rams address offensive line and then they all get hurt. And maybe you just need Connerly to be your guy for the next 8 to 10 years, and you mix and match him. Does he play left tackle, right tackle, whatever it may be? Mm-hmm. They're a team that's kind of go for it, right? And they just signed Devontae and they did all these things. You got to keep your guys upright. And Stafford, I think limiting how many shots that guy takes, the better. Michael Williams just feels like a Raven. This could have been a Tyler Booker spot. This could have been a lot of things. But again, if Michael becomes Jadeveon Clowney, again, like that freak athlete, the whole thing, that you kind of want a little more out of when you watch him play, but again, can impact the game in a lot of different ways. I don't know if he'll fall this far, Mike, but it just feels like the Ravens could use it. And
Yeah,
that's why
he's another one I've heard, like, don't be surprised if he's in the 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. If he falls to 27, I think the league will look back on it in a year or two and go, how the hell did we let Michael Williams end up on Baltimore? How did that happen?
Yeah,
it's real. I mean,
these
start looking at the board.
These are frankly, these are the ones you struggle with the most at the end of the first round, just because these teams are such wild cards. They're such good rosters. I want James Pierce at 28. I would not take him here. Full stop. There's too much off the field stuff that I don't know if is like the most controllable in terms of, I don't know if you're going to break the mold of who some people are. I just think It's not like he's Aaron Hernandez. I just mean like he's, I don't know. There's just something, there's definitely something a little off, at least from whatever you just read and hear. But I feel like if he's going to go to a spot with a really good, strong culture, with a head coach in Dan Quinn, he gets to play alongside Hayden Hutchinson and that really good interior defensive line. Like Pierce and Hutchinson off the edge is a really fun group. Like it just is. Pierce could be your secondary pass rusher. He doesn't have to primarily go against left tackles or, all these different things. I think that could be a nice spot for him. And we've talked about it for like 6 months. They're looking for that second edge. They traded for Zadarius Smith. That worked, kind of did. Maxwell Harrison at 29 is the pick I feel the worst about, and I'm sure that'll be the one that I get right. They need another corner. I know they, Lattimore's. Yeah, we don't have to talk about Marshawn Lattimore, but Harrison, I don't know if I would take him there. But again, obviously had a really nice week in Indy. He's a good player. We'll see. I'll just finish it out here, and then we can highlight. I hit Kenneth Grant falling this far, and Walter Nolan too. Both felt like didn't feel great about either of them falling this far, but Buffalo signed 2 defensive tackles who were suspended for the first half of the year due to steroids, which is hilarious. Yeah. Ed Oliver is suspended, but because he got extended early, I think you could use a bigger guy next to him that can not make him have to be so two-dimensional. It can be a little more one-dimensional and shoot some gaps and do different things. Walter Nolan at 31. Chris Jones isn't getting any younger. And on top of that, this defense could use some juice next to him and let him be able to kind of be a chess piece. And is this a locker room? The Chiefs have no issue drafting guys that maybe are not the easiest to deal with, as slated by their off-the-field records every offseason. So, again, Nolan, just to me, the Chiefs bet on talent here and say, hey, we'll bring him in, we'll get him in our culture, and we'll get him doing what he's really good at, which is being super athletic off the football and hitting people. I went Luther Burden at 32 to finish. I went it for a couple of reasons. I think I felt like the best player remaining on the board, and the Eagles have been really good about, hey, you played in the SEC and you're really good at football. We'll figure out a spot. Devontae Smith is locked up for a long time. A.J. Brown feels like this might be the last year in Philly. I'm not sure. Maybe he's there for 4 more years. I don't know. A.J. kind of feels like a guy who's 3 or 4 years is enough in one spot, and then he kind of
it's the wandering eye.
Yeah, it starts to kind of where it just kind of wears out a little bit for both. And again, Burden, a guy that don't you feel like the Eagles could get the most out of him and put him in a spot where there's no pressure? He comes in, he's your third receiver, and it's like, hey, man, this guy's going to be a top 10 pick before the year. He had a bad year. We'll correct some of the laziness and, play to play and all these different things. I think they go a million directions, but again, I finished with Burden here just because I felt like, again, Nolan, Burden, and Grant falling out of the top 32 would be I felt like I had to get them in there somewhere.
Burden's 2023 tape is awesome. It's why we sat here coming into the season and we're like, he's a top 10 pick. Like that was the feeling, like he could be a top 10 pick. And I'm quickly looking this up because I did a write-up on Boston Sports Journal about the receivers in this draft. And I want to read the quote that I got from somebody on Luther Burden. So bear with me for a second. Oh, here it goes. This is from a scout. He could eventually be the best receiver in the class, or he's such a pain in the ass, he'll have buyer's remorse. I'm not sure there's an in-between. And that's truly like, there's a bunch of players like this. Like Pierce could be one of those guys where you're like, oh my God, like he's so talented and he goes 28th and all of a sudden he becomes a stud for the Lions. Or you could look at the fact that he played 35% of the snaps for Tennessee, which is crazy when you're their best player and someone that we talked about, or consensus talked about being the number one pick in the draft back in August. And then all of a sudden he falls to that point, but there's reasons why this all happens. The Burden one though, going back to that, he is so good with the ball in his hands. And there is that, we've heard that Debo comparison quite a bit, right? He is, when he's so physical, he's great in space. And like, he is a pain in the ass to bring down. Like that's a 5'11", 205-pound powerhouse that like feels like a running back when he's in the open field trying to bring him down. So that would absolutely make a lot of sense for Philadelphia, especially as you mentioned, sort of not knowing about how much longer A.J. Brown is going to, you're going to be able to play nice with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's going to be able to play nice with Jalen Hurts. And then, like, look, they traded for Jahan Dotson last year, and I know he had a nice Super Bowl, but, like, he did nothing for them.
He was irrelevant in the part of the season.
Right. So, like, it could be an instant upgrade as the number 3 receiver for Luther Burden if his head is screwed on straight. What was I going to say? If I had any other thoughts on the back end of that draft? The Walter Nolan thing, again, one of those guys that I was talking about Ted and sort of the disparity, and then mentioned Michael and maybe Josh Simmons. He's another one where I think if he went 11 to San Francisco, wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be shocked. If he fell out of the first round, I wouldn't be shocked. So at that spot, if you're Kansas City and your roster is, look, there's some offensive line issues and maybe you could use another playmaker, but you're looking at going, that's the best player. We'll get him next to Chris Jones. People have to double Chris. Walter Nolan single teamed against a guard or a center. I'm feeling pretty good that if Walter Nolan's dialed in, that Walter Nolan can be a disruptive player. And at that spot, it's probably a wise decision to make, because you could flip Burden, put Burden there, but then you start looking at, all right, Rashee Rice is sort of a similar, like, not an elite route runner. It's a lot of underneath stuff, getting them the ball on screens and things of that nature. So they've invested a lot in that position the last couple of years between Rice and Worthy. So, yeah, I Walter Nolan's an interesting one.
Yeah, Sky Moore.
Sky Moore, is he still? They didn't cut him, did they? I think he's still on the team.
I guess not. No, he's still there.
Wow. I would have put money on Sky Moore getting released this offseason. Maybe he's a camp body for them. I like Sky Moore coming out, by the way.
43 catches in 3 years.
Yeah, and some bad drops. Was that 2 years ago? He had a couple bad drops in the postseason. I don't hate it. I said, well, Will's first round mock draft. Does Giardi hate it? Giardi doesn't hate it. I like it. Very few picks to quibble with. I'm trying to think who did the best. It's funny. You're like at the back end of the draft, that's what you said. You feel least comfortable. And then it's funny because at the top end of the draft, because of some of the needs versus the fits or versus the best talent available, it's like, that's a weird part too, where you're just like, do I love Will Campbell at 4? No, but you can totally understand why the Patriots would do it. Do I love Abdul Carter there with Thibodeau and Burns on the roster? No, but if he's the best player, and you just say maybe we can build a beast on defense and save our jobs, I don't know if that's possible. Probably not, but I think that's where we're at. So high quality draft. I have my 3-round mock draft with trades, which some people don't like trades in mock drafts, which is funny because there are 8 first-round trades last year in the draft, 5 during the draft, and 3 that happened prior to the draft. So I don't know, like that's what happens in the draft. And so that'll be a 3-round mock draft with trades. We'll talk about that next week. That's going to do it for us now. We appreciate you as always. Thank you for supporting us. Like, listen, subscribe, rate, review, do all those wonderful things. Tell a friend, tell their friends. You can find us on social at Will Pa, at Mike Giardi. Again, appreciate you. We'll have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. I got to hit the end record button.